Oh, thank you. Welcome to our forum about the librarians. We thank all of our co-sponsors and our partners, and we appreciate all of you being here. We apologize for the confusion of our venue and RSVP and all that, but the Brewery Arts Center did its best to accommodate us, so we're glad to be in this room. And there was some confusion about the RSVPs. We don't have a way to respond to confirm that that we've gotten your message, but maybe sometime we'll figure that out. Anyway, the restrooms you have to go out through the art display, and they're right there. Also, please silence any of your devices. And I would like to introduce to you Ilya Arbitum, who was able to secure the rights to show this film. And after he's finished with his, then we'll start the movie. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll keep this brief. I am showing this movie wearing two different hats, partially. I'm one of the co-owners of the Radical Cat, which is a bookstore in Reno that if you haven't been to, please come check us out. And also, I'm a member of Freedom to Read, which is basically kind of a grassroots advocacy group that came together around the attempted passage of WC1, which was a renewal of a library funding ballot measure for Washoe County libraries that unfortunately failed. It had been around since 1994, and it didn't do well. And part of the reason it didn't do, the ballot measure failed is because of the political climate that this movie here addresses. We did get the rights to the film through ITVS. Michele, who will be moderating the panel later, will give you a little bit more info about where else you can see the film, and we'll also kind of talk about some other things that are happening real time about book banning and some of the other topics here. We do have a special guest here tonight that we didn't have at the previous screenings. Her name is Sue Granzel. She's sitting here, and she's a teacher from California who wrote a book that very recently came out called Push to the Edge, and it's a collection of interviews with teachers, elementary school, middle school, high school teachers who have dealt with culture wars in their classrooms and in their libraries. We do have copies of the book, and Sue will be hanging out after to chat. It's not there are school librarians in this movie as well, right? So this affects all libraries, not just public libraries. And yeah, feel free to come up and chat with me. I'm also here with Tara DeCaros, who's also a member of Freedom to Read in the green jacket here. And if you're interested in getting involved with library advocacy stuff, obviously we are up there in Washoe County, but we're always interested in coalition building, so come talk to either of us about that. And please enjoy the film.
We have panelists to answer some questions now about the movie and about their role as librarians. Our panel includes Joy Holt, the director of the Carson City Library, Bets Markle, who is on the Carson City Library Board and is president of the Carson City Friends of the Library, and Amanda Campbell, who is the librarian at Carson High School and is the lead librarian for Carson City School District. Our moderator tonight is Michele Ravera from KUNR.
This is the 5th time I've seen the movie, and I did cry each time. And I appreciate that this room is so crowded and that so many people are interested in this topic because it's so important. And I'd like to recognize all the people that it took to bring the movie to so many places so far. And I definitely want to lead with, if you want to see it again, it's actually on YouTube, on the Indie Lens website on the YouTube until May 9th. And I would encourage other people to see it, so if you tell people that you saw it here tonight, it gives us all a chance to continue to let people know about the topics in this. I guess, Ananda, you're the closest sitting to me so far, I guess, starting, and this question is for all of us. So was there anything in the documentary, I know this was the first time you saw it, but was there something in particular, like a moment or anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, thank you. Is this
Yeah.
okay? Is that on? Yes. Okay, thank you. I'm Ananda Campbell, and I'm the librarian at Carson High School. And thank you. Hi. We're all senators here in Carson. And I'm the lead librarian for the school district, which means I do training and development for all the librarians. And I represent school librarians across the state on the state council for literacy and libraries. And watching this for the first time, I challenged myself to wait until tonight to see it. So much stuck with me, but near the beginning when she was talking about being a steward of the space, the library is a neutral ground for students. And in the rigor of academia in the high school, the students need a space there's no assessment, there's no judgment, there's no expectation other than being a good human. And it's so important that I am a steward of that space for those students, so that they can feel safe and feel comfortable and just be, and that's enough.
And Dr. Betts Markle.
Thank you. Well, I've been a librarian for working in libraries for over 40 years. I love libraries. To me, libraries are a place of learning and discovery and magic. And this film just really showed that there's a lot of people who don't understand that. And it's the librarian's job, it's the community's job, it's parents' jobs to make sure that students and the community understand the importance of libraries and the free flow of information that is available to all of us. It's part of who we are as Americans. And this film really showed that there's a battle out there.
Hi, can you hear me? My voice is very low sometimes. I'm Joy Holt. I am the director of the Carson City Library. I actually watched this movie a couple of nights ago because I didn't want to get frothy in public. So then when I watched it the first time and tonight when I watched it the first time, what struck me as most compelling was almost the very last scene where they're talking about closing the library and that there were people who thought that was a good idea. And I thought to myself, I'm from a small town, and I thought to myself, I'll give you the sequence of my thoughts. What would have happened to me if I hadn't had libraries in my small town with no bookstore, no Amazon, no money to buy books anywhere, even if I'd had those avenues available to me? And then I thought, what would have happened to my friends who were living below poverty, who needed that library to get out of their small town and have an opportunity beyond what they were already doing and not be stuck? And I'm just going to say, too, full disclosure, that if you want to stay where they're there and you don't feel stuck, right on. But some people do. And then I thought to myself, what's going to happen to the kids right now in towns that are in that same situation? They live in poverty or they live in lower middle class life. And then I realized that what I'm really getting at here is that this seems like a issue with poverty and not caring about poor people. I'm not saying that only poor people use the library. But if we whittle some of this down that we just saw to its most base level, it is a total disregard for people who don't have the means and resources at their disposal without a library for whatever it is that they need and want to do there. If they don't, in some of these communities, if they don't have money, if the library closes and they don't have money, they have no access to information, except maybe YouTube, which is scary in itself. But I'll leave it there.
Well, starting at your end of the table and maybe.
Could you guys slide your microphones a little closer to you?
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Mine's stuck, sir.
Oh, yours is fine.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. What is the process for a parent or a concerned citizen to request the removal of a book here in Carson? And have you personally experienced censorship?
So the process at the Carson City Library is that in our policies manual on our website, there is a request for reconsideration of materials. That form has to be filled out and submitted. And I am the first person that looks at that and makes a decision. If the item is not removed, if that's my decision, then it can go to the library board. And from there, it can go even further. However, that request for reconsideration requires that whomever is making that request state if they've read the book, what portion of it they think is inappropriate, and why they think that's inappropriate, and why do they think that it's inappropriate for children or whomever they are asserting it's inappropriate for, and what is it that they would like the library to do, and do they have any suggestions for what material could replace that item they want off the shelf?
Thank you.
Well, I haven't worked in a public library. I've worked mostly in academic libraries where we don't have. Doesn't happen very often that people are complaining about the books. So I think what Joy says about reconsideration for materials, there's a saying that, the best libraries are the ones that have something in them that will offend everyone. Because, we can't, with the information that's out in the world and, even long past and now, you can't make everybody happy. And you don't want to restrict something because somebody doesn't like the topic, because they don't, and it's not that they want to restrict it to a wide group of people. If you just want to restrict a book because you don't like the topic, well, then don't read it. And don't let your kid read it if that's the way you want to think about it.
And just like any library, as long as you have a strong policy and regulations set forth with collection development, selection policy, Carson City School District also has strong policy in place. It's very clear if there are steps that anybody can take if they have concerns or questions about a book in the library. And the first step is to ask the question. And I've had numerous experiences in my 18 years as a librarian and 29 years in teaching in Carson City with, say, I taught 8th grade English, and we were reading The Witch of Blackbird Pond about Puritan America, and I had a small group of parents who were very concerned that we were reading books about witchcraft. So, and those of you who've read the book, there's not a witch on Blackbird Pond, but of course, I asked the parents to read the book, and then it was a moot point. But typically, if a parent asks a question about a book, I'm able to talk about, I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to hear what your concerns are, and let's talk about that. And of course, as a parent, every parent has the right to determine what is appropriate for their own child. I don't think anybody else would say that I know better than that parent for their child. And so we really stick with that in Carson City School District. And as a high school librarian in our library, we have everything from picture books to adult books because we have a wide variety of, diversity of age group and maturity of the students. And so one of the introductory lessons we do with freshmen is we have everybody, we do fun book activities, and every student has a book, and I say, okay, let's read the book, and now pretend you saw a word that you don't like and it really upsets you, and your parents, would not want you to read that. What do? And we just close the book. And, and I say, and then talk to your grown-ups, talk to your people, and talk about what your family values are and what's important to you, and you decide what's right for yourself. You and your family can decide. I have never had a parent at the high school give me a list of books that their children are not allowed to read, but they are certainly welcome to do that. But it hasn't come to that. So I think really just having those conversations. I'm very lucky here in Carson City School District. We have strong administration, strong library training, and our school board is very supportive and follows our district regulations. So, so far it hasn't been a huge issue here, but watching the movie, it could be. And so I'm going to put a little plug into vote, 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 because we decide who our school board are. And, you've seen in other areas, other districts, that a school board comes in that, is very performative and political, and it tends not to work out, or to work out in a way that they want it to work out. So if we don't want that, we need to vote for school board members.
That can be really important. After I saw the movie the first time, I called a cousin in another state who has young children, and I asked if she knew about this, and she said, oh, yes. We knew who they were right away, and we did not let them take over our school board. In a good way, it's nice to know that some communities have banded together to decide as a community what they want. And one of the things that you were talking about, the standards, and I know there are volumes of standards on what books end up in our libraries. Does one of you want to address a little bit about the guidelines?
Well, at the Carson City Public Library, we really follow what is, I wouldn't necessarily say it's guidelines so much as maybe best practice of what almost all public libraries do. So the watchword for us at Carson City Library is community, which means that we are taking into consideration our community, our demographic, what our users have shown us that they want and what they've asked for, what's in demand, what is an interest, and what is good quality. So we do that in a variety of ways, and it's very data-driven for the most part in terms of what's circulating. Can we see what's circulating? What genres are circulating? What actual books in that genre are circulating? Because you, as library users, are telling us what we should be buying based on what you're reading. Now, that said, we can fill in the gaps by using any manner of resource for literary fiction, for example, for nonfiction. It's for those more fringe, if you will, subjects. But mostly we're doing that completely based on what our community is showing us that y'all want, what you're telling us that you want, and doing the best that we can do to also reach out to each and every one of you and find out what it is that you want. And if it fits in our collection, then we will be happy to purchase it. Where that can become tricky is the quality of the material. So sometimes people will suggest items that no one had an editor, and I'll leave it at that.
Oh, that's great. Were there some audience questions? Oh, good.
Michele?
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to Joy's response as well. I mean, as the three of us here are professional librarians, and we've gone to school for that. We've had experience working with the community, and we learn about selection tools. We train to do selection and collection development to, again, meet the needs of the community. And it's sometimes it might feel like, oh, well, I like that author, so we'll just keep buying that author. But, there are tools. There are review tools that are commonly used, so that when somebody says, well, why did you pick that book? Well, it was highly reviewed in, 3 review sources, and it seemed to be something that would be appropriate for our community.
That adds a lot. Having, I came down here from Washoe County today, and I record segments for the library in Washoe County, the on the shelf and on the kids' shelf segments, and librarians do book reviews for children and adults. And there was a buzz in Washoe about something going on, like this stuff in the film, and I couldn't wrap my head around it, and finally went to, I'm pretty sure it was the April 17th, 2024 meeting of the library board, and it was wonderful, and they're recorded so you can find it online. Debbie Steers, who gave a very in-depth explanation as well as to what the guidelines and standards are for like requesting a book be reviewed or removed, and what you have to do that too. So that's okay. And did we have the question from the audience as well?
I can add to that.
Oh, please do, please. Thank you.
To add that,
there's
Susan,
Hannah.
Mrs. Hoffman.
Okay, she's on it.
Just like she was talking about, we do have so many sources that we look at for reviews. I'm challenged more not with people who were concerned about books that we have, but students who request books that are not my forte. I get some requests. I have no idea what they're talking about. And so I really rely on the professional reviews, because same thing, I want to bring in quality material. And so no matter how experienced you are as a librarian, you're asked for material you don't know. So that's why we research and review.
Thank you. And I'm not sure about too many other counties, but if anyone, and I would even include the audience, is aware of any issues in Douglas or Lyon counties with this going on, it would be okay to speak up, because I'm not aware of any. And if any of you do know.
Lyon County just survived something similar to this,
Okay.
or is surviving. So I would say reach out to Wynn Prindle, who is the library director of Lyon County, and she can elaborate on as to the details. But it was it initially derived from a church group.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that
So-
was one of the things in Washoe County that I witnessed at that April meeting. It was being called the book banning meeting because a number of people were asking about this, and there was a Moms for Liberty representative there who held up a graphic novel and explained her view on the book, and it was a lot like what you saw in the film. So I do know that it's happening in the state. I noticed on the map they showed the Vegas area, like Clark County, but they didn't. This movie came out before this was even, I think, spreading wider, and they didn't have like everywhere on there. And one person asked if there was a sneak attack, do you think that you could mobilize the community? And I kind of feel like it's not a sneak attack at this point, but I do hope that our communities continue to mobilize on all the issues that are important to one another. I mean, I don't want to sit here and dictate what the outcome of this is, but I think we know what is happening.
Well, I would say that in a public library, there's a variety of different kinds of sneak attacks that could happen that we have to be mindful of and train for. So we're in a public library, so when I hear sneak attack, I'm not just thinking about someone attacking our collection, because that's the reality of working in a public library. But yes, I think that we are very lucky at the Carson City Library that we have a very supportive board. And we have a very supportive staff, awesome team who really believe in the work. And I also think that we have a supportive, for the most part, supportive board of supervisors. So, but that could change at any time, and we have to be ready for that. And so, yes, I do believe mobilize. I'm not sure. Gather interest. Yes.
Well, and I think too, I mean, when I look out at the audience, I mean, there are people here that I know that are friends of mine. There are people who I know participate in civic activities and nonprofit groups. And there are a lot of people in Carson that would not let this happen. Yeah. No libraries closing here.
Good. One question someone asked is, are there librarians you think are allied with banning books? And I don't want to answer for you, but I kind of feel like it goes against the ethics of your career choice, I believe.
You want us to name names, or?
I think that is a tricky question. I don't know any, or they're afraid to tell me because they know I'm not. But I do think that we can't ignore that there are communities that are, I would say there are librarians that at the very least struggle with their ideals and philosophies as related to their work as a librarian and their spiritual beliefs. I think that is out there, and I think that's, frankly, just as a human being, I have empathy for that, because that has got to be such a terrible internal struggle to reconcile those things. So yeah, I do think there are probably librarians out there at the very least that struggle with this to some extent. Yeah.
And I think if you want to reflect on the film, they portrayed the woman who was on the board of the school who went through some revelations in her own mind about what she was doing and what her path was. And that was one of the most impressive things for me, is that this movie was able to show someone being reached about their ideas, and they kept an open mind, even though they thought they knew what they were doing. And I think that is one of the hopeful things about the film we saw tonight. One of the scarier things coming up, I just wanted to mention this, there are some bills. I printed this because it's from the American Library Association, and they are opposing a House, it's HR 7661, that threatens funding for elementary and secondary education for providing what they're calling sexually oriented material. But if you watch the movie, you understand what that slippery slope is of calling it that at all. So what they also are asking, so you could look into that, and then to oppose HR 7661 and instead support the Right to Read Act, HR 6440, and I suppose the Senate number is 3365. And a simple Google search with keywords would get you that information to look it up for yourself. But I just wanted to bring to your attention that it's not just the schools, but this could, it looks like it could be part of a wider effort. And so I did at least want to mention that, so if people were interested in that. And then just looking at this last question from the audience in your, let's see. I'm having trouble reading it. If you know this is your question and you don't mind clarifying, it just says, do you find conflict with your, oh yes, please.
I think I don't think conflict or contention would be. I think there is open dialogue of their varying ideas and philosophies. Everything from, do you follow Dewey Decimal or do you genreify your library? I mean, there is some contention with that subject, I'll tell you.
That's a hot topic, Ananda.
That is a very hot topic. So, I guess I can use the librarian joke. It's a very quiet conflict. But that's the type of quote unquote conflict that I welcome. I love to have discussions about, library practices and, whether what we bring in for the collection, how we organize the library, how we support students. You have librarians who want a very quiet, calm, academic space, and then you have me. And my library is very, very active. And I just brought in a guitar and a little piano because I had some kids who want to play music at lunch. And I mean, that's the conflict that I see, is people just talking about what are we doing and why are we doing it and who are we helping, who are we working for. So I wouldn't say contention about philosophy so much than dialogue. Yeah.
Yes, I'm really grateful to you all for doing what you do for us and support our rights and our kids do what's best. So thank you personally.
How are we doing on time? Okay. Yes, I do think that these two questions that were provided by Nevada Forums, thank you for hosting. I appreciate it very much. They want to know if there's anything that any of the three of you wish that the public better understood about your role as a librarian, and if there's anything you see as the biggest challenge for libraries at this time.
I would like, how do I best say this? One thing I think it would be nice, and not that people don't understand this, but is understanding the very fine balance that I have to strike and we have to strike in a public library, which isn't to say Ananda doesn't have that same type of balance, because we are trying to not necessarily be everything to everyone, although that can also be a challenge in terms of balance because we kind of want to be everything to everyone. But the balance between very polar opposite needs in some cases and opposite demands. So about a year ago, to give an example of this, I received a phone call from a user who was very concerned that they had been in the library earlier that day and someone who was perceived by them as being homeless was sleeping. And they wanted to know why the library doesn't just lets that happen. Why do we let people sleep? Well, we don't, but we can't always see it. And so we do have rules and we enforce those, but we can't always see when someone's sleeping. And frankly, sometimes people who look homeless aren't homeless. They're just messy. So that very same day, I received a phone call in the afternoon from our downstairs information desk. And a staff member asked me to come down and speak to a patron who had asked to speak to me because that staff member had approached this male who was laying in our children's play area, looked to be asleep, had headphones on, listening to it with his phone on his chest. And he asked him to please sit up, sleeping's not allowed, and to move. And the man wanted to speak to me. So I went down there and I talked with him, and he told me, the previous caller had told me we should not have sleeping in libraries and all of that. This person told me, everyone should be able to sleep in the library. That's ridiculous that I can't sleep in the library. You know what you should do is you should get sleep pods like they have at Google. And I said, well, that is cost prohibitive. But encapsulates that balance that we're dealing with. I mean, and I would like to say that that extreme is not common and frequent, but it kind of is. So I'm trying to always, and our staff is trying to always meet those needs when that pendulum in one day swung like this. And so that's one of the biggest challenges that we face long term in general. I think the challenges librarians face or libraries face is budget constraints. Because if the Institute for Museum and Library Services gets chopped, as it's been on the chopping block as part of the executive budget for the last 2 years and for, I think, in 2020, and if that organization is not funded, then they cannot provide the grants to states that then trickle down to each state through the Library Services and Technology Act, which then trickles down to the municipalities and the schools. And so that's a very real constraint that we're facing and a very real possibility. I also think that staying ahead of and informed on the rapid fire changes in technology, because libraries and librarians have always been early adapters and early adopters, but staying ahead of that technology so that we can deliver robust guidance and information, and also help people not go into future shock over the rapid fire technology, but also making sure that we don't burn out from that constant change and helping others not grow nervous and afraid, because that is a lot of times what happens is the fear. So that's another challenge that all libraries face, but it's going to get next level because of AI.
Well, when I think about challenges to the community regarding the library, I really believe that more people need to participate in knowing what the library is doing. And, you know, there's a lot of people who think, well, I don't need to go to the library. I can get my books on Kindle, and I can borrow them electronically online. I don't need to ever go there. And, you know, our library here in Carson is getting a little old. Not due to joy or anything, but, you know, there was a bond issue that was defeated.
Twice.
Yeah, several years ago. And, but if you go into the library and you see, you know, just walking in the front door and you see a whole wall of announcements and activities that are going on that aren't just for the library. It's not just the children's story hour or craft making. It's all the different kinds of activities that the library is doing, but also what the community is doing. And when I go into the library, there's always people in there, always. And there's kids in there. And it's really, really important that the kids grow up knowing how to use the library. Because if you don't have kids in the library, they don't become library users when they're adults because they don't have experience. I mean, other than schools, which can be good or not, depending on statewide funding. The state of Nevada is notoriously bad to funding museums and libraries. You know, I have a public forum. I can say things like this now. So, you know, it's up to the people who care about libraries to spread the word about libraries and continue to support the libraries in the community because they are very important.
Of course, the biggest challenge, I mean, I could talk about funding, and the LSTA funding at the federal level definitely trickles down. That's how we pay for databases and research. Our district does not have, my library could not afford that. You know, we had a bill that did not pass requiring certified librarians in all school libraries. and our non-certified librarians, like, they work so hard. They are doing the job of fully paid educators at, a third of the pay, and without any training whatsoever. And we're expecting a lot of them. So I appreciate our district has put into place some support systems for that. But I think one of the biggest challenges, and what I wish people knew about our job, and then I can just direct it exactly to the people here in front of me and how you can help. I wish people realized what we do all day. And because I've had people ask me, like, what do you do? Check out books all day? And I'm like, no, I have people who do that for me.
You don't read all day, Ananda?
I wish. I have student helpers, and they check the books out, and then we print a receipt. Like, I don't do that. But, I had a teacher in today who came to ask me something, and she just looked at me and she goes, "Is your brain exhausted at night?" And I'm like, yes, because the number of problems we solve and questions we answer, and the thing I couldn't solve today that I would love help with, I had a student who needed deodorant. And I have a space in the library where people donate, small items, individual size, shampoo, conditioner, toothpaste, toothbrush, deodorant, and tampons and pads. And because that's not sexually explicit, it's something that happens. And I have had so many students tell me for them to be able to just walk in the door and grab what they need and not have to ask. It's not a big deal. They don't need to raise their hand. It's right next to the door. And I ran out of deodorant. So this girl today, then I went on, I was in search of, hey, do you have deodorant? But that's that's the challenge of the things that we do all day. I used to have a wonderful volunteer, Grandma Bobby, who came in once a month and did a craft, and she purchased all the materials, and she had kids crocheting, she had kids doing, art pieces, and, maybe sometimes there were 3 kids, sometimes there were 10 kids, but we love when Grandma Bobby came. And so if people in here, if you have the time, if you have the inclination, reach out to your school library and say, hey, this is what I'd love to see you once a month, or can I come in and do a read aloud? Can I donate deodorant or, snacks, or because kids come to me for snacks, and I have a wonderful small group of friends who I go home and there'll be granola bars on my porch, and I know that's because they're feeding the kids at school. So that's what you can do to help, is reach out and just say, this is what I have, and this is what I'd love to give to you. So we appreciate that. We appreciate any kind of support like that. It makes me realize that I'm not alone, that there's a community out there who love these kids and want them to have everything they need. So that's the challenge, and that's what I would like you to know.
That's wonderful. There was a librarian at a previous showing that I went to who explained one of the other items that they get a lot is people will come in and say, my kids want me to call them, but I don't know how to use my phone, and hand the phone to the librarian. You can't imagine, I can't even imagine probably the questions that you guys have been asking.
We actually have a 3 o'clock Tech Busters program for folks who need help with their phones to come in and get said help. And if you have any feedback about what other digital devices you have that you would need help with, we would be more than happy to figure that out, because that's what librarians do. Does anybody know who Ken Jennings is from Jeopardy? His mother was a school librarian. And I just read this article written by him, and he said that librarians are playing a long game of Jeopardy every single day. And I think that's very true.
I do know one question we had from the audience is if controversial books are segregated, and mostly by patrons, not by the librarians. There is an issue with people of many backgrounds. It's not aimed at one political party or another. There are people of all stripes who have hid books in the library, defaced the books, like the picture of Maurice Sendak's little boy on the cover with the pants. That is an ongoing issue for many people. And Then one other question was, is the removal process the same statewide? Which I don't know the answer to.
Very likely. It's a pretty common process. What we have, and what Ananda probably has. It's pretty standard. I will say that, kind of leading back to what you're saying and asking about censorship. That's the kind of censorship we've experienced: is people tearing pages out of the book, people when we have a pride display hiding the books. That kind of, or people finding certain books and putting pictures of Jesus in them is another thing. We probably experience that more than anything else. So I don't know if that's censorship, but it's definitely trying to send a message.
Yeah. And I definitely wanted to mention that there's an upcoming Holland project in Reno showing of this movie in a less formal way, where the focus won't be people sitting around watching the movie, but it'll be on so that people can talk about it. So that's just one other upcoming event I wanted to make sure you guys knew about.
And thank you. Am I on now? Thank you so much to our panel.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Before you go, I'd like you to know about our next forum. It involves voting and the changes in voting regulations. Our speakers will be Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State, Mark, I don't know his last name, Deputy Secretary Walshin, thank you, and Scott Honan, the Carson City Clerk Recorder, and Lucia Starbuck will be our moderator from KUNR. And thank you so much for coming.
Did you sit there having Starbucks?
Yeah, right.